Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
Hello and welcome to Spectrum TV News at 4. I am Raymond Ita, coming to you live from the beautiful hills of Ibiakuran. Let's take a look at the headlines. Federal government begins terrorist attack victims verification. IGP meets police commissioners over election security. Plus, Russia to expand trade with new partners amid Western sanctions. We will bring you details of these stories and more in a moment. Welcome once again and many thanks for staying tuned. We begin with a report that President Muhammadu Buhari has met with United States President Joe Biden in Washington, D.C. Photos shared by the presidency showed President Buhari in a meeting with Biden and the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken at the White House on the sidelines of the U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit. The U.S.-Africa Summit, which began in 2014, is reportedly the most substantial commitment by a U.S. administration to boost its influence in Africa for almost a decade. According to the U.S. government, the summit will demonstrate the country's enduring commitment to Africa, as well as underscore the importance of U.S.-Africa relations and increase cooperation on shared priorities. Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden has met the leaders of African nations that hold elections in the new year to press for a free vote. On the sidelines of a summit that has brought most African leaders to Washington, Biden and his top aides met separately with a group of 6 leaders as part of his democracy push. The group included Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari, who is ineligible to seek a 3rd term in February to lead Africa's most populous country in the vast country's first peaceful transfer of power. Also at the meeting are Gabon's Ali Ondimba, who has been president since 2009 after succeeding his longtime ruling father, and leaders of Liberia, Madagascar, and Sierra Leone. Biden's National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, said the participation of the leaders did not necessarily indicate that the United States had concerns with each country. And now in a separate development, the federal government has launched a survey to verify victims of terrorist injustice, where the officials from the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development were on ground to attend to them. In an interview with reporters in Jos, the minister, Sadiya Farouk, said the exercise was aimed at determining the appropriate intervention response for the victims. The minister noted that Plateau State had been experiencing insecurity in the forms of attacks and bomb blasts for years, necessitating a meeting with the victims to interact and get their dates being open to vehicular movements. The 1.6 kilometers long bridge links Anambra as well as Delta State. The bridge, which was first proposed during the 1978 to 1979 political campaign by the then candidate, the light and urged the present administration to complete it before May 2023. In the meantime, the federal government says construction work on the East-West Road will go up 200 billion naira, including 13 billion naira on the field element axis of the road. The Minister of Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, stated this during a visit to Rivers State to assess the state of work on the 38-kilometer Bodo-Boni Link Road under construction. Fashola expressed satisfaction on the tax credit scheme arrangement between the federal government and the Nigerian liquefied natural gas, though it was a full government project. Elsewhere, the federal government says it is next year and commence operations by the second quarter of the same year. That follows the recent flagging off of the bid process by the Bureau of Public Enterprise. Reports say once the concession process is rounded off in March, the commissioning will be held in the second quarter of the same year. The Zungeru project, located at Zungeru, Niger State, is estimated to generate 2.64 billion kilowatts of electricity. A loan from China's Exim Bank is reportedly the biggest of its type in Nigeria. And now in politics, the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) has planned to spend 117 billion naira on electoral technologies, in line with its decision to deploy the bimodal voter accreditation system and the results viewing portal in the 2023 elections. This comes as a and database. Recall that the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, had said there was no going back on the commission's vow to use technology, including the bimodal voter accreditation system and results viewing portal, in the forthcoming polls, despite protests by the presidential candidates and chieftains of major political parties. INEC chairman, who announced this at a stakeholders conference on election result management in Abuja, said INEC engineers had reported several cyber attacks on the portal during the Ekiti and Osun governorship elections, some of them as far as Asia. Now, ahead of the 2023 elections, the Inspector General of Police, Usman Baba, today met with commissioners of police and heads of police formations in Abuja to strategize on election security. The meeting at the force headquarters was also attended by Deputy Inspector Generals of Police, as emphasized on intelligence gathering in tackling security challenges. The IGP engaged in tactical meetings and conferences with various stakeholders to build solid standard operating procedures and strategic communication action plan towards a seamless electoral process next year. In another development, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission (EFCC) says it has so far recovered over 30 billion out of the 109 billion naira allegedly siphoned by the suspended Accountant General of the Federation, Idris Ahmed. Chairman of the Commission, Abdurrashid Bawa, stated this while appearing at the ministerial media briefing organized by the Presidential Communications 2022. The EFCC boss also said over 3,615 convictions were recorded within the period and affirmed the administration's seriousness about its anti-corruption program. He announced that a nationwide auction of forfeited automobiles will be followed by the disposal of over 150 houses to interested buyers. Now, as the Yuletide approaches, the Department has safety. This is as it takes steps in concert with sister security agencies to maintain law and order across the country. At the same time, the agency has pleaded with community, religious and political bodies to preach peaceful coexistence, tolerance and unity. It also asked the groups to enlighten their members on safety measures during and after the season so as to prevent criminal elements who may want to capitalize on the festivities to wreak havoc or harm members. In the news, France set up final with Argentina at the World Cup 2022. Stay with us.
Season's greetings from Spectrum TV.
Every day, we bring you up-to-date information on topical issues affecting the common Nigerian. From issues on politics,
Hello, Nigeria. I remain committed.
Security. Join Janice Kobum and Uyai Anyeken
every weekday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Rise and Shine Daily, exclusive on Spectrum Television.
Welcome back, and thanks. Chef Mazuki says he fears what may happen if he goes home. In an interview with newsmen ahead of Tunisia's parliamentary elections on Saturday, Mazuki said the country's current leader, Kais Saied, was part of a counter-revolution against the 2011 uprising. He accused after a July referendum. Saied is a populist figure who was elected as Tunisia's president in 2019 on a platform that blamed the country's economic woes on the political elite that had run Tunisia since 2011, including people like Mazuki. And moving now to the foreign scene, where members of the European Parliament have deplored that 90 years after the Holodomor, Russia is again committing horrific crimes in Ukraine. In a resolution adopted today in 1933, known as the Holodomor, as genocide, the members of the European Parliament condemned the act, which resulted in the deaths of millions of Ukrainians, and called on all countries and organizations that had not yet done so to follow suit and recognize it as a genocide. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin says his country will expand trade with new partners, including switching gas flows to eastern neighbors. He said Russia will remove restrictions in logistics and finance. But Putin warned that by introducing sanctions, Western countries were trying to push Russia to the periphery of world development, but that his country would never take the route of self-isolation. Elsewhere, nurses in England, Wales and Northern Ireland have begun the first of 2 day-long strikes over pay. Reports say staff will provide life-preserving and some urgent care, but routine services are likely to be disrupted in the biggest ever walkout by the National Health Service nurses. Increases are compromising care by making it hard to attract and retain nurses. The government says the group's demand is unaffordable and that it has met independent recommendations on pay. But the strikes will reportedly run by December 15 and 20, with the biggest impact likely to be in pre-booked treatments such as hernia repair, hip replacement, or outpatient clinics. Still on the foreign scene, China has removed 6 diplomats from Britain whom police wanted to question in connection to the alleged beating of a pro-democracy protester outside the Chinese consulate in the English city of Manchester. British Foreign Secretary James Cleverly told reporters that the move follows a request by the British government for China to waive diplomatic immunity and allow its diplomats to be interviewed by police. Recall that the confrontation occurred during a pro-democracy demonstration in support of Hong Kong outside of Manchester's Chinese consulate in October this year. A video of the incident showed one of the protesters being dragged into the consulate grounds before being beaten by a group of men. The Consul General Zheng Xuan later claimed that the protesters had incited the violence with rude banners and that it was his duty to defend China's dignity. On business news, the newly redesigned Naira note is due to go into circulation today, with deposits money banks releasing the bills to their customers via over-the-counter 1,000 Naira denominations at a weekly Federal Executive Council meeting in Aso Rock Villa. Recall that the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, in October announced that the Apex Bank would release redesigned notes by December 15. He also said the old notes would cease to be regarded as a legal tender by January 31, 2023. Still in business, the Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, NETI, says Nigeria lost 600 from 2009 to 2020. It made this known in a statement issued by its head communications and advocacy, Obiageli Onora. It also welcomed the decision of the federal government to set up a special investigative panel on oil thefts and losses in Nigeria, describing it as bold, courageous, and timely, given the havoc the menace had wreaked on oil production and the country's revenue generation. To health matters now, the World Health Organization and United Nations say urgent action is required to achieve safe and sustainably managed water, sanitation and hygiene, in line with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal. According to the findings, this is important to prevent devastating assessment of sanitation and drinking water, which details the latest status of wash systems in more than 120 countries. The report said while 45% of countries were on track to achieve their nationally defined drinking water coverage targets, only 25% of countries were on track to achieve their national sanitation targets. Cases, but several challenges stalled the gains and progress in eliminating the disease in Nigeria. Well, according to the WHO's 2022 malaria report, the tally of malaria cases has reached 247 million globally, with 619,000 deaths in 2021. It noted that the African region continues to carry a disproportionately high share of the global malaria burden. Nigeria and 3 other African countries accounted for just over half of all malaria deaths worldwide. However, the 2021 Nigeria Malaria Indicator Survey report showed that the malaria prevalence in the country decreased from 23 to 22%, but the fight against the life-threatening disease is far from over. According to the report, Nigeria. And now in sports, France have moved a step closer to fulfilling their dream as the thrill ride that has been Morocco's campaign in Qatar came to a painful conclusion for a surprise package Morocco, which became the first African country to reach the semi-finals. Morocco's magnificent supporters who flooded into Doha in thousands to splash the stadium in red were left tearful but proud. France will be facing Argentina for Sunday's final at the Lusail Stadium. But still in sports, Kodo sees a serious risk to her safety. Well, the order was given by a Los Angeles court after Natalia revealed what 32-year-old Dwayne Kemp had done over the last few months to put her at risk. The judge, who was convinced that Kemp is dangerous, granted Natalia a 3-year or 200 yards away from Natalia, a home, her job, her car, school, and sorority house at the USC. And now in entertainment, actor Henry Cavill has been dropped as Superman by the new bosses of DC Studios less than 2 months after he announced his return to the role. Cavill shared this on Instagram, expressing his disappointment because he was told by the studio to announce his return back in October. He, however, wished the new owners the best of luck. According to reports, Gunn and Safran took over DC Studios in late October, just after Cavill made a surprise appearance as the Man of Steel during the credits of the Dwayne Johnson film Black Adam. And finally, the highly anticipated special Big Brother Titans TV reality show that will feature housemates from Nigeria and South Africa will premiere on January 15, 2020 today at a media parley in Lagos. Announcing the commencement of the show and prize money, the Chief Executive Officer, MultiChoice Nigeria, John Ugbe, said the BB Titans edition will run for 72 days. And that's all we have for you at this time. Do ensure to follow us on our social media platforms, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website at spectrumtv.ng. Well, thank you so much for watching. I am Raymond Ita. Do well to enjoy the rest of the day's broadcast. Bye for now.